I want to tell you a story, a hypothetical story, a patient of mine. We'll call her Susan. Susan came to my office. They'd seen something on her MRI scan. She'd been very distressed about it. When we see patients in the office, generally we look at the scan first just to see, okay, I don't walk in the room without knowing what was on the scan. So I looked at the scan. It was nothing significant, what we would call a normal variant. It was just the normal brain anatomy. But she was very distressed, and so I was eager to find out what it was that had brought her to see me, or to even made her want to get this scan. Well, Susan was 38. She was supposed to be married in 6 months. So she was a little bit anxious about this. She wanted to lose weight for her wedding. And so, actually, what had happened is she went shopping for wedding dresses with her mother-in-law. And her mother-in-law talked her into getting a wedding dress one size smaller than she was. So, which she said would motivate her to lose weight. Susan then thought, this is no problem. I can do this. And so she started exercising every day. And she would go to the gym, and she would go on walks, and she would exercise every day. And what do you know? She was gaining weight. She said, "Doctor, I know there's something wrong with my glands, right? This is a problem. I know there's something wrong with me. I'm exercising faithfully, and I'm gaining weight." I said, "Well, tell me about your exercising." She said, "Well, I go to the gym." I said, "Do you do the treadmill?" She said, "Yes, I do the treadmill at the gym." I said, "How do you know when to stop the treadmill?" She said, "Well, when I get to 200 calories, then I can stop. I've done enough." I said, "Okay. What does it mean that you do 200 calories? And she said, "Well, if I do 200 calories, then I can have a brownie." Also, I know at the yogurt shop exactly how much 200 calories of yogurt is. I know exactly. And I always cut a brownie square smaller than 200 calories, so I should be losing weight. I always put less yogurt in than 200 calories, and I don't have many toppings, so I know I should be losing weight, and I'm gaining weight. I said, I think I see the problem. The problem is called moral licensing, and it's a very interesting trick that our brains play on us. When you do something good, you feel good about yourself. And when you feel good about yourself, you give yourself permission to trust whatever judgments come next as far as how big that brownie piece should be, how much yogurt you should put in. When we do something that is good for us, it somehow gives us permission to do something not so good. We deserve it. It is actually a subtle trick that your brain plays on you. And people who think of themselves a little more righteously are actually more susceptible. So people in religious communities, doctors, pastors, politicians, anyone who has a position that reminds them of their virtue is even more susceptible, which is why we see the scandals that we see. We say, oh, how could that have ever happened? Moral licensing is something we all need to know about. When you do your exercise, when you do whatever, eat the food that you think is good for you, if you are focused on the fact that it's good, the short-term goal, versus your actual long-term goal, which is not just to eat the food or just to exercise, right? Your goal is not just to exercise for 200 calories. Your goal is health, is to lose weight. But what we do, because we love to break things into little pieces, it allows us to handle them better, is we say the goal is 200 calories. And as soon as you make the goal 200 calories, and you are good if you do it, you are now susceptible to moral licensing. Because now when you are good, it's going to give you permission to be bad. Or I would say, instead of saying to be bad, to do something that is not consistent with your long-term goals. Some interesting research was done. This baffled the researchers when it first came out because nobody could believe it. They gave students a choice. Chocolate chip cookie or a fat-free yogurt. So it was a health-conscious campus, and 57% of them chose the cookie, which was good. A lot of them actually chose the yogurt. They said to this group, if we are going to give you actually the same choice next week. 1 week from now, you're going to have the same choice. Cookie or yogurt. Now, which one do you want? 87% chose the cookie. Think that, wait a minute, what's happening here? Well, I can choose the yogurt next week. And we start to see things happen. Now, 67% of those believed they would choose the yogurt next week. And when next week came, only 30% of them chose the yogurt. So we forecast into the future, and this is a form of moral licensing. We think, I can be good next week. When salads appeared on the menu at McDonald's, wow, that's a good thing, right? Sales of Big Macs went way up. Doesn't make sense. Oh, I can have the salad next week. And you notice how powerful this is. It was baffling to the people when this information started coming in, how quickly we will morally license whenever we feel good about ourselves. So it's something that I want to bring to your attention so that you can look at your own lives and say, where might I do some moral licensing? Where is this running in my subconscious mind that I'm actually not aware of? When you have a hard day, you're coming home after a hard day, what do you deserve? You deserve a little something. I remember the commercial, you deserve a break today. Right? Very powerful advertising, capitalizing on moral licensing. You've worked hard, you deserve it. To what? To do something that's not good for you. And a lot of our advertising will run this way. When they asked the students, they were tempting the students with cookies or something, and they said, we want you to remember a time when you resisted temptation. We want you to remember a time when you resisted. 70% of them ate the cookie. 70% of them gave in. If so, you think, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. Well, if I remember a time when I was good, it gives me permission now to have a reward for it. When they asked them, remember why you resisted temptation, 69%, almost the same number, resisted. When you get in touch with your values, when you get in touch with why you are doing something, your long-term goals, you resisted because the last time you ate that cookie, it put you to sleep, and you couldn't study well, and your blood sugar went up, and then it came down, and it just wasn't working for you. It wasn't healthy for you. Now you can resist. So we go from remembering exactly the last time we had a temptation to why we resisted. You know, it works, interestingly enough, with generosity. If you ask people to remember the last time they gave, the donations drop significantly. You'd think it would stir more donations. No, it makes you think, I'm such a good person, I probably don't need to give today. If you have people remember why they gave, the donations go up to that cause, if they are connected to the cause. Weight Watchers meetings. People are coming out of the Weight Watchers meeting, and they say, we've got an apple here or a chocolate bar. 58% took the chocolate. That when they were reminded of their progress, how much weight they had lost, 85% took the chocolate. See, this doesn't make sense to us, not what we would think. By reminding yourself of the progress that you're making, licenses you to do something not in line with your long-term goals. 85% took the chocolate when the dieters were reminded how much progress they had made with weight loss. And the thing about moral licensing is we don't feel guilty. We have absolutely no guilt. We have justified it. It is morally licensed. We consider ourselves well justified, good people. And now we deserve this. And we all know people who do this, but we all do it ourselves. It is, in my opinion, one of the things that in society actually is, and the media certainly contributes to this, is a big problem for us. So I'm going to spend a few minutes right now. I've described this to you. I want you to think of things that you might need to take a look at where you do some moral licensing. I'm going to give you a minute or so. I want you to think or write down some times in your life in the areas of health, in the areas of relationships. We morally license a lot in our relationships. We take people for granted. In our finances, where do we do moral licensing in our finances? Right, what actually is a sale? How many of you have heard this? The more you buy, the more you save. What is that? I'm going to make you feel good. Yeah, actually, you're right. The more I buy, the more I save. There it is. Right? The media, and the advertisers, very savvy about getting you to feel good about doing something that may not be in line with your long-term goals. Let's take a minute or so. This is important stuff. Let's make some notes. Let's do some self-inventory here, and then we'll continue. I want you to also spend a moment on your long-term goals, because many of us in this room have never actually written them down or even thought about them. And he who aims at nothing hits it. And the reason that I often delay doing that is because once I write them down, now I feel I can't morally license anymore. I've written down my long-term goal, and now I have a focus. What is your health focus? What is your long-term goal? What is your 5-year goal, 10-year goal for your health? Your 5 and 10-year goal for your closest relationships? A 5 and 10-year goal for your finances? Which is also going to help you focus in a lot of ways. It's going to help you pray. Right? That's one of the things prayer does, is it actually establishes long-term goals for us, which is incredibly helpful for the brain. It's basically steering you. This is the direction I'm going. And your spiritual life. The long-term goals of our spiritual life. Most of us have done the most moral licensing in our spiritual lives. And if you do that, you will sabotage yourself. And you will not feel guilty. You'll have a good conscience doing it. Reading your Bible. Anything that you say is good when you do it and bad when you don't do it is free reign, free ground for moral licensing. It's good when you read your Bible and bad when you don't. Good when you pray and bad when you don't. Anything that you have done like that is susceptible, is subject to moral licensing. So if you set your goals of spiritual life as, I want to get closer to God, I want to communicate with God. Now there is a goal that prayer and reading your Bible may be steps to achieve. But if you make anything, good or bad, if you do it or not, then I can promise you, if you do it one day, you will probably be able to say, I don't need to do it the next day. You'll easily justify getting out of it. That's how our minds work. And I want to educate you as to how the brain works so that you can be wise and say, oh, I can see that. I can see that. I see it in myself. Doctors are some of the biggest moral licenses. We have this, position in society, so we get to morally license a lot of things. We get to treat people poorly. Brush people aside, dismiss people, be gruff with people. Because why? Because we're so virtuous. We're doing such good for society. Right? This is, and you see it in politicians and famous people. And a lot of this is behavior that's justified on the basis of your position or the fact that you believe you've worked so hard or done so much good that you then can excuse not treating people well. So I want you to spend a few minutes, those categories of what you moral license and then some long-term goals. I want you to just a few words, what would you like to see to describe a long-term goal of your spiritual life, your health, your relationships, your finances? Right? We do things to divert our attention so that we don't have to think about our long-term goals, which gives us the ability to morally license a lot of things.